I think this is the first presentation where I had my own intro kind of music like that. That's so nice. Do you do that at every TDC? Yes. This is like the hallmark thing. You become a speaker, we'll fly you here, and we'll give you your own intro. So classy. It's nice. Okay, cool. I'm still Scott, and I'm still up here on the same stage, so we got the same room, except this time, all right, there we go. You never get the chance to really see the bald spot, except when you're on stage in Norway. Here we're going to talk about ASP.NET, right? That is this one, yeah? Intro to ASP.NET. The titles don't really matter. Let's actually, we'll say that. The titles don't really matter. Yeah, all right, good. I don't know how to spell. The other thing about typing in front of a lot of people is that I type really, really fast when I'm alone. But the more people, the worse it gets. I type like 100 words a minute, but 90 are backspace. Cool. So I have been working in .NET and ASP.NET since 2002, and I have been doing open source since 2002. I actually went to Microsoft to do open source. I've only been at Microsoft 8 years. I've been in the industry for 23, which means that I remember more about being outside of Microsoft than I do being inside. And I like .NET, even older versions of .NET. My blog runs on a thing called Das Blog, which means the blog. That's how good my German is. Oh, Das Blog, yeah. It means the blog. It actually ran .NET 2 until just earlier last year when I upgraded to 4.5. So it ran great. My blog is actually has never really gone down or had any major issues. So one of the things that's exciting and why I like working on ASP.NET is that open source is evolving, not just at Microsoft. It's open everywhere. I think sometimes it's funny to think about the bosses and the presidents of companies that are ignoring open source. You know, that this is happening. And if you ignore it, then you're going to be in trouble. I love that little guy. You can use this like cartoon for anything at all. I just imagine I'm going, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. So we're not ignoring open source anymore. Blah, blah, blah. Skip. I'm going to skip all the boring stuff. Here is a really cool article about Microsoft doing shared source.NET. Let's take a look at the date. Did y'all know that we did this before? Did y'all know that this is actually the third time we have open source.NET? Yeah, maybe this time it'll actually stick. The first time was called Rotor, or Rotor, R-O-T-O-R. Does anyone remember that? No? A couple people? Rotor was what they called shared source. We gave the source code to .NET to academia, to colleges, except we gave it kind of a stupid license, and we said you can't give us anything back. It was a look but don't touch. And we also took out the jitter and the garbage collector. So we gave you kind of a yucky version of .NET for education. And it was like those books that you get in college that say, and we'll leave the rest as an exercise to the reader. You know, here's .NET without any of the good stuff. And actually, there's people who are open sourcing .NET right now who were there in 2001 and really want this time to work. Now these guys, I don't like these people. They're kind of snarky. They said, it'll be different this time, honest. It actually will. It actually will. There's a lot more open source going on at Microsoft than people realize, and the stuff that we're doing is actually pretty cool. Blah, 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 blah. .NET open source on GitHub, not just ASP.NET, but we've got like 6,000 forks and 1,000+ community pull requests. This chart shows that about 20% of the contributions are coming from outside Microsoft, and about 10 or 11% are people who are doing 5+ pull requests. So these are active contributors that are doing stuff a lot. These are 10+ PRs. So there is cool momentum. Now this is a really interesting chart, and this gets us into ASP.NET. This shows 6 different projects. Roslyn, which is the open source compiler, and then the core effects and the core CLR, so that's the runtime and the libraries. Those are those ones that are like a rocket ship, they're taken off. That's community code contributor growth, and then the number of months that it took for that to get like that. They're all clustered around there together. Then here we've got model view controller, entity framework, and what's called the .NET execution environment. They're all clustered together. Why do you think that is? I don't have an answer, but I have a guess. I think that computer science-y stuff like compilers and runtimes are fun, and it brings out the academics. I think computer science-y things like compilers and runtimes are fun to get running on other platforms, and there's a challenge there. Someone out there is trying to get .NET to run on a PlayStation 2. I'm sure of it. We're probably Norwegian because you guys love to do stuff like that. And then you'll come out of nowhere and they'll be on the top of Hacker News. And it'll be like a 12-year-old girl. And she's going to be like, I really wanted .NET to run on the PlayStation 2, so I did it. And we're going to be like, that's amazing. We never thought that the PlayStation 2 would be a viable situation for .NET. And, go Norway. Because you know it's going to happen, right? That's the kind of excitement that goes around new compilers and stuff. Less so with things like MVC, which is like a web framework. And what's a web framework anyway, right? It just makes strings, right? It's a thing that makes strings. It either makes curly braces or it makes angle brackets, depending on how old you are. I'm more of an angle brackets guy myself. So less people are excited about that, but that's fine. We're getting started. Now, this is a slide that I continually have to update. This number here always is growing. So that's updated from a couple days ago. And if you go up to this website that no one ever goes to, at .net.github.io, you will see all the repositories, and you can hover over them, and it'll tell you how they're doing. Okay? So docs and hosting and all these different things. Here's Orchard, the CMS, Identity Server, Umbraco. These are all things within .NET. MS Build, a lot of people don't realize MS Build is open source now. And you can go and see, like the core CLR has been forked 1,000 times. This is a really great website to get a sense of the health of the community. And it updates very, very often. Now, ASP.NET 5, since I only have a half an hour, I'm going to just show you a couple of slides, and then we're going to go right into as many demos as I can until I run out of time. This is a little bit confusing. That's why I made charts with boxes and lines. ASP.NET 4.6 is released. It's released today. It was released yesterday. It is RTM, released to manufacturing. You can go live with this now. You can get support with this now. It sits on top of the .NET Framework 4.6, which you can use now. If you have a .NET 4.5 app, upgrade to 4.6. It's a good thing. You get benefits. Now, all the while, we are doing things underneath the .NET Framework. So Roslyn, the C# and VB compiler, is open source. It's now underneath .NET 4.6. The new jitter, the new 64-bit jitter, is underneath .NET 4.6. .NET 4.6 has got a lot of cool stuff going on. I won't bore you with it, but rest assured, it lives on and does a lot of cool stuff. We call this the full framework. That's what we say internally. Core framework, full framework. So that's the full framework. Now watch carefully. Now, ASP.NET 5 is not out yet, runs on top of .NET 4.6, works just great. And you remember when we were talking about one ASP.NET that is unified, a web API controller and an MVC controller are the same thing. So ASP.NET 5 is unified. Now, here's where it all falls apart. This is where people get a little bit confused. And this is really important for you to understand. ASP.NET 5 can run on both full framework and core CLR. The core CLR is the smaller CLR. See, look how I can do this. That one, right there. That runs on Mac, Linux, and Windows. And that core CLR sits on top of core libraries that also sit on top of Roslyn and the jitter and all that kind of stuff. So the core compilers and components are the same. But there's stuff you don't get on the core CLR, like system.drawing is an example. It sucks that we don't have this, and we should. But system.drawing calls Win32 APIs for drawing. Those don't exist on a Mac. Therefore, if you want to make an image, we're going to need to come up with a cross-platform drawing system. If you want to access the registry, or if you're going to go and call file.open, you need to think about your slashes, backslash versus forward slash. there's going to be things where the abstraction will leak. So you want to think about that. So when you make a file new project right now in Visual Studio, and you go over to the Solution Explorer, and you open up References, you're going to see this thing called the DNX, the .NET Execution Environment. You're going to see 4.5.1, which is the lowest version that you can run ASP.NET 5 on. And then you're going to see the DNX Core 5. It builds simultaneously for both. So when you say build, you're building at the same time. And we have a thing called Unified IntelliSense. And what this is a fancy way of saying, when you type a function that isn't available in both places, we'll warn you. And then you have to decide what you want to do about that. So if you decided to go into something like, I think I can do like threading or something. If I wanted to be in here somewhere, system.threading. You see these little guys that pop up here? Those are telling you those are not available on both frameworks. So then you have to go and if-def your way around it, just like any kind of cross-platform kind of a thing, or decide that you're going to abandon one and then not do it. If you're going to go all core framework all the time, or if you're going to compile for both. Getting rid of one of these frameworks is really, really easy. The new project system has a thing called project.json. You see here where it says frameworks. I'm going to delete this one. Watch on the right-hand side right now. I'm going to hit Save Now. Now it's gone. Undo. Put it back. And see it says Restoring. It's going and doing all the NuGetty stuff that it needs to go back to the way it was. And now it's back. So ASP.NET 5 runs on both. That's out. Oops. That's out. That's open source. We will have in November a release candidate that will give you support for. So if you go live now, you get nothing. You're on your own. If you go live in November, you can call support and we'll help you, assuming you keep up to date. And then that go live, you could then ride that all the way out until we actually release the thing, sometime early next year. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. Okay. So things that are useful to know about ASP.NET 5 is that it is completely modular, like it is disturbingly modular. Anything you don't like, you swap out. You don't like the error page, you swap it out. You don't like the inversion of control system, you swap it out. You want to have your own Razor compiler and stuff, you swap it out. That's the goal. And one of the things that has come up and why we made it totally modular is something called the Tech Empower benchmarks. Are you all familiar with those? No? Let's go out and Google with Bing for Tech Empower benchmarks. All right. And if we go over here and we look at round 10, this is these web framework benchmarks. And they go and check all these different frameworks. They actually check 118 different frameworks. And let's just be real, benchmarks are benchmarks, right? So, if you're picking your web framework because, it goes 0 to 60, I don't know, do you say 0 to 60 here? Do you say 0 to 100 or 0 to 100? Okay. You use seconds though, right? Okay, just checking. If you're basing your decision based on some metrics like this, you probably need to consider things. But you can see, ridiculous numbers like this that are in the millions. And then you start scrolling down. Let's look for Node. Did we pass Node? There's PHP. There's Node, right? So you see that there's, as with all frameworks, there's a long tail. Some of these frameworks were written in things like C++ in order to be awesome on the benchmark. Like that was their job. Now, in the past, people would take ASP.NET and they'd make like a new web forms page, and they'd go response.write hello world, because this is a plain text benchmark, and we would suck, and we'd be at the bottom. That's because they went and they took a minivan to a drag race, right? Minivans are great. Minivan, like you don't just value speed. I also value being able to fit a lot of kids and groceries into a minivan. That's a valuable thing. If you want to make a cool dashboard that can use lots of a lot of components, whether it be open source components or third-party components like Telerik and things like that, you want to pull that dashboard together and make a great enterprise app, web forms is valuable. My blog is written in web forms. Web forms got us this far. But it's not meant to do low-level benchmarks. So then you might think to do stuff like HTTP handler or some low-level thing like that. Well, ASP.NET 5 is even lower level than that. And we're looking at things like swapping out http.sys and swapping out IIS and trying to do different stuff. We have finally decided that we're going to go for it and try to get in the top 5 or 10 of the Tech Empower benchmarks. And by 5 or 10, I mean 1 or 2 million requests a second. So if you go up to github.com/ASP.NET/benchmarks, this is all open source. You can go down here and see some of our plain text benchmarks. You can see, this is on our hardware, so our hardware is a little bit weaker than theirs. You can see ASP.NET 4.6, 57,000. You can see static files doing this much. You can see Node right there, right? Now you can see Kestrel is coming up. When we turn on things like HTTP pipelining, though, ASP.NET 5 is doing almost 500,000. And we know how we can get it to 1 million, maybe 2 million. We've even got some other experiments from the community on a thing called Rio, where this is not ASP.NET. This is raw C# on top of libuv, which is what Node.js uses. That can do 2 million a second. Or a thing called Rio, which is registered I/O. It's a new thing in Windows, where we can do almost 6 million requests a second. So we're looking at what does ASP.NET 5 on Rio look like. So we're going to get in the top 10. But is that the minivan that's going to get in the top 10? No, it's a totally modular minivan, like a transformer that you can turn into a drag racer, because you can pick and choose the pieces that you want. You can swap out compilers, you can swap out pipelines, you can swap out the web server, whatever makes you happy. So we're going to have ASP.NET modular enough that you'll be able to do that. Those benchmarks, you can download them and run them yourself. We would love if you'd get involved and check that out. So we are going to be fast. I don't know why a person flexing means fast. That actually means kind of slowish, I would think. But still, fast. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Let's do some demos. I've got a couple. First one is, who's running Visual Studio Code? Who has no idea what Visual Studio Code is? I just love making Norwegians raise their hands. Person in the back there, no idea what it is? It's good, though. I like that you're a quiet crowd, because if you Americans, 3 minutes into my talk, one of you would be like, "You suck! America!" for no reason at all. And I fully thought that I'd come to Norway and be like, "You suck, Norway!" But it didn't happen yet, and I appreciate that. Code.visualstudio.com is a code editor, not an IDE. It's a code editor. So think about this as our Sublime. It is written in TypeScript, 200,000 lines of TypeScript. It is not Atom. You familiar with the Atom editor? It is in no way the Atom editor. It does use Electron, which is the shell around editors like Atom or Slack, things like that. But it is not, it is its own editor. And you can prove that by loading a 20 meg text file into it and seeing Atom crash and seeing Visual Studio Code not. You will get this on Linux, Mac, or Windows. It is a lovely thing. What's cool about it, here's code. I made it, I can zoom in and zoom out because it's, HTML. What's cool about this is that it does ASP.NET 5. It's also a fantastic Node editor. So if you don't care about any of this ASP.NET 5 stuff, but you like Node and you love your Mac, then just go and download code and use it with Node.js. But there is a little open source project called OmniSharp. See the little flame down there? OmniSharp powers this. So if I start typing this dot and I get IntelliSense, I don't get autocomplete. Autocomplete is what you get when you typed something twice, right? I don't know any Norwegian words, but if you type a really long word in Norwegian, like farfignugan or something, and then you type it again, it'll go and say, "Oh, I know that word," and it'll autocomplete it, right? This is IntelliSense. When we said this dot, we actually made a call cross-process to an out-of-process Roslyn compiler that is in memory introspecting on that object and giving you information. To prove it, that it is real, let's go and say var I equals 0, I dot. That's numbery stuff. Now we'll change that and we'll make it a string. I'm not saving the file. That's stringy stuff. So that's cool, but you don't want to use Visual Studio Code because you like Vim, because you just want to be, an anachronism. You want your friends to be impressed by you because you use Vim. I also use Vim. I have a copy of Vim that I have not been able to exit. It's running still, even now, on a machine at home. And one day, I will exit Vim successfully. If you go to omnisharp.net, you can run .NET code on Atom, brackets, Emac, or Vim, and get that exact same experience. We have plugins for Vim, for you, friend, who uses Vim. So here's Sublime. And I've done a little special something here. Notice down at the bottom, I've opened up the OmniSharp console, so you can actually see localhost : weird number. So as I type in Sublime, we just made a call. You can see the calls happening, and then the autocomplete came back. Isn't that cool? It's going like that, right? It's nice. You don't have to, I don't want your pity applause. He tried to start an applause line. I want honest Norwegian applause. Now, even that was pity applause, and I refuse to accept it. So let's see if I can do better. Let's do this. This is a web application that is targeting .NET Core. And I can come out to the command line here, and I can type dnvm list, okay? And you'll notice that I've got all these different versions of the .NET framework, the new core .NET framework, including this one, just to make it subtle. So I have a Macintosh runtime here, okay? And I can say dnu publish -- runtime, and I can say dnx -core clr -darwin blah 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 blah, and I can publish out this thing. So I put that onto this. I published my Hello World application from a second ago, and I put it here under web output. So here is my application, and it's on this USB key, okay? So somebody give me a Macintosh, someone I don't know. Someone give me a Mac. And if you have anything I shouldn't see on your computer, just incognito mode. Seriously? You have to turn it on. He's taking notes. Look at this. He's in the front row, and he's taking notes. That is the most Nordic thing I have ever seen. He's actually engaged and watching the presentation. That is amazing. I would actually have to wake someone up in the States. And how do I, does it go over here? So here's a USB key from my PC. Look at me trying to figure out how to use a Mac. All right. That is not your Mac. Displays. You guys have such a freaky enter key. How do I show mirroring options, arrangement, mirror displays? Close enough. Cool. Terminal, enter. Enter. Make font size bigger. Could I make that any smaller? Oops. Terminal help. How do I, what the hell's going on? It's that Norwegian keyboard. What's going on? Page up. Where's the zoom? I don't think that's the zoom that I want. No. All right, I'll just keep doing that. Okay, where did you hide the slash? What are all those weird things by the L? There's all these, it's like an A and an E, and they're together to get something. I don't know what's happening. Where am I? Web output. I think the real achievement isn't getting .NET to run. It's getting me to type on it. Where the hell? What the hell's going on? Help. Okay, web. Oh, all caps. Web output. Can you come up here and type for me, sir? Why won't it go in there? Here.
Okay, what do I do?
Are you going to teach me? I want to go in that folder.
Web output?
Yes, sir. Is CD spelled differently in this country?
I think so.
I did that. Oh my God. All right. Then to go / and then Kestrel. No, yeah.
The other slash?
No, any slash, whatever slash makes you happy. That one there. And then enter. And then, okay, cool. So then this is going to start running off of the USB key. The USB key's blinking, right? And I don't know you, right? We've never worked on this before, right? You don't run Chrome,
No,
which is weird. He apparently,
use Safari,
he runs Safari, which is fine, 5,000. Okay, do the colon. I don't know how to do that. Colon. I'm just going to keep you here to press colon. And then 5,000. And then this tiny enter key.
Nice.
All right, cool. Hey!
What's happened?
Hey! So that is an ASP.NET 5 application that was created on my PC. I brought the runtime down onto my PC, packaged it in, published it up. It is now running local. It's a real thing, I promise. Now you're looking at the docs. Don't do that. See? On a Mac. Okay, and that's running on this USB key.
Yeah.
And that got a modicum of applause. So thank you for your help. But that did not impress the Norwegian audience enough, because you guys are a tough crowd, and I respect that. So let's do this. Let's switch back over to the other machine. Where's my friend in the back there? Switch over to the other tiny machine. That's freaky. There we go. So where'd my keyboard thing go? I had a keyboard. Oh, it's right here in front of me. I'm going to blame jet lag for that one. So here, let's go to Dev. See how the American keyboard works so well? And we'll go to Home. We'll go to Samples. We'll go to Hello, MVC. Now this is a little bit older system. This is still running on Mono. But I should be able to fire up ASP.NET 5 and then whatever this crappy browser is. And we actually do have this running on Windows 10 running Raspberry Pi as well, just to be clear. But I'm showing you Raspberry Pi, ASP.NET 5 on top of Mono. This is just before the DNX switchover. And there we go. So there is ASP.NET 5 running on a Raspberry Pi. And where is the Raspberry Pi? It is right here. Cool. I start to feel, and maybe that's a little bit, that's actually honest applause. Cool. So this, and actually I can prove it to you by unplugging it. Put that back. By the way, don't take these through security. They really have no idea what they are, Arguing with them like, it's a Pi, it's a Raspberry Pi. What are you trying to do with that thing? Not a good idea. So ASP.NET, now I'm not saying we're going to have production-ready Raspberry Pi code, but I am saying that we are going to have for you systems that will enable us to do stuff with open source that maybe we couldn't do in the past. Last thing I want to show you is, if you go to docs.asp.net, the ASP.NET documentation itself is now open source, and it's written not in Markdown, but in a thing called restructured text. It's like Markdown for documentation people. And we're using a thing called readthedocs.org. It's really great stuff. We actually worked on a project that allows you to do like MSDN style documentation. We wrote a Python module that lets you read assemblies in and do Python style documentation. So you can go in here now and say, getting started on Mac or getting started on Linux, and how to install this stuff. And we're going to have, right now it's all just a curl, but we're going to make a website soon called get.asp.net that will allow you to get ASP.NET really easily. And the other thing I want to encourage you to do in order to get up to speed on the latest cool stuff that we're doing is take a look at live.asp.net. This is our community stand-up. We're doing things very open right now. And just to tell you how open we're getting, you guys are familiar with the Microsoft MVPs, right? These are like the special people that we come out and we knight them, and then we tell them all the secrets, and there's like a fairy princess thing, and you go bing, and then they get to fly away, and they hear all the secrets about Microsoft, and it's like a club. This year, because I run the ASP.NET MVPs, I'm going to record the entire ASP.NET MVP Summit, and I'm going to put it on Channel 9. So you all get to watch it as well. How cool is that? So it is a brand new day. It is all open source. It is all great fun. And it's going to be ASP.NET 5 running on Mac, Linux, Windows, and maybe on Raspberry Pi. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you a little bit later in a couple more sessions when I get to do the ending keynote, or the lock note that I'm calling it. I'm going to lock it all up. Thank you very much.